The biggest thing you gave me was time.
I've always been a proponent of do the job, do it well.
When you're a family, everyone in the family has to be treated with respect.
I couldn't have done this without you. Coming here to K-State, you've been my confidant and in the room with me.
I want to know who you really are, right? You can put whatever you want on paper, but that doesn't really matter.
His teachers, they meet the learner wherever he is.
They don't care what you know.
They know how much you care.
Be aggressive. Let's win. Here we go.
Why don't you take a moment to take us through your story, to tell us, to let us know what has gotten you to be the athletic director at Ball State University.
Yeah, well, Coach, I appreciate the opportunity. And, I was thinking about this question because I figured it would be right at the top. And, I don't think I knew it at the time, but I got my start when I was a manager for my high school football team. And I grew up in a small town in Southwest Mississippi called Magnolia. And Magnolia had a great high school football team called South Pike High School. And my college football coach put his arm around me when I was in the 9th grade. And I didn't play football. I was a baseball player. And he put his arm around me coming out of church one Sunday and said, "Jeff, I need you to be a part of our program, and I need you to be our manager." And so I jumped at the opportunity. I thought it would be a neat deal to just work in that type of environment. And I got hooked, and I don't think I realized it at the time, but I got hooked. And fast forward to go to college at Millsaps College in Jackson, Mississippi, where I was a 4-year member of the baseball team, but I was also a 4-year member of the sports information staff because I wanted to be a part of an athletics department. And so I did that for 4 years, and then I had an opportunity at the end of my 4 years at Millsaps to stay, and I had the opportunity to continue my education. So I went to MBA school, but I also was the director of sports information. I got offered a full-time job right after school, and I also coached baseball. So I was busy for those 2 years, and I couldn't shake the idea of going to law school. My father is an attorney, and as a matter of fact, I was heading to law school right out of college, but then that plan got put on hold because I accepted the opportunity to work and the opportunity to go to MBA school. So I went to Ole Miss for law school, and that was back in the early part of the 2000s. So Eli Manning was quarterback at Ole Miss during that time, and it was a lot of fun being at Ole Miss then. Of course, I was doing the law student thing, but at the same time, I was working in the athletics department. And at this point, I really was fascinated with leadership and higher education and athletics administration. My wife and I got married right after I finished law school. She was already living on the Bay or in the Bay Area of California. And so here I am with a couple of years experience under my belt. I was essentially a GA at Ole Miss during law school. So I had that under my belt too. I had an MBA, had a law degree, and I had on the West Coast, and I volunteered at Santa Clara University. They were so gracious to allow me to come in and just do whatever. It turned out that the biggest need at the time was in compliance. So I put that legal nose to use there and did compliance at Santa Clara. And I ended up working at Santa Clara for 12 years and climbed that quote unquote corporate ladder a little bit, and actually served as the interim AD there for a stint back in 2015. And in 2018, August of 2018, I had the opportunity to go be the deputy director of athletics at Southern Miss. And so moved back to Mississippi and was the interim AD actually the first year I was there. So you just never know what comes your way. And then was the deputy for 4.5 years, and then had the opportunity in early 2023 to join Ball State University and serve as the director of athletics, where I've been for the past 19 months. So starting in the Southeast, going out to the West Coast, back to the Southeast, and now first time living in the Midwest, where I own my first winter coat and survived my first ever winter in life. So look forward to this next winter because it's coming soon.
Right. Well, I tell you what, it's like we've had many guests on this podcast, and it's so cool when I just listen. I listen to the stories, and like I said, that's why we don't do the introductions, because the things that you say as you tell your story, you talk about the fact that like this place that you are, it was not a direct course. You didn't have this all laid out, right? There were great opportunities along the way, and we'll talk about some people who helped you along the way. But it's just cool to listen to that story, because it sounds like so many of the leaders, but then in another way, it's very unique to you. My next question is concerning values. And here at Kansas State, we talk to our players and across the country, but even outside athletics, you have companies that list their core values. And my wife, sometimes she has to chastise me, because like when you tell me to list my values, I could list about 100 of them. And so no, man, listen, no. Give me your core values. What are those 2 or those 3 things that when you walk into a room, when you live your life, who are you and how do they go into the way you live your life? And so I would ask you that question. When you think about your core values, how do they go into your 2 or 3, not 100 like I would list? How do they go into the way you operate as a leader every day?
Yeah, I love this question, Coach, because it's so important for leaders today to be able to identify at the drop of a hat their core values. And admittedly, it took me a while before I fully realized what mine were. Like you, I had 100 of them. And the more I was forced to refine that, I eventually came back to 4 core values. And what's interesting is that, as a longtime sport supervisor, this is as I was coming up to be an AD, I would write on my whiteboard in every office that I worked in 4 expectations for the relationship that I would have with coaches. And it went both ways. I was holding myself to these 4 expectations. I was holding our coaches responsible and accountable for these 4 expectations too, so that we could work with each other. And over time, I began to realize that those 4 expectations were, in fact, my core values. And so they're positivity, communication, helpfulness, and a growth mindset. So I try to approach everything that we do in the most optimistic way possible. And I encourage our staff, our coaches, people across campus with whom I work to approach any issue that we might be facing in the same manner. What can we learn from a situation? How can we overcome it and not see it so much as a deterrent, but as an opportunity? So being optimistic, being positive, very important. The second part, communication, we can solve a lot of problems together if we talk to one another. And I'm a big believer that the more information that's shared, the more quickly you can find a resolution to a problem, or the more quickly you can accomplish a goal that you've set for yourself. And within the context of a team, if you're talking to each other, the helpfulness part is a big deal. I believe that there's no better compliment that can be given to someone than to be called a great teammate. And I try to be a great teammate every day, regardless of the setting that I'm in. And the fourth element, fourth core value is possessing a growth mindset. So being curious, asking questions about how can we, what if we, why don't we, what's next. Those guide the way I lead, those guide my life, the way I parent, and the relationship that my wife and I have. And we try to live those every day. And I certainly do. And they're unique to me. And I love the opportunity to share them because I'm passionate about it. And I try to resemble those core values, regardless of the room I'm in.
Right, right. Well, and I think that's phenomenal. The next question that I have is concerning, you being in your role, you get an opportunity to bring people into your organization, into your department. And I read a lot of leadership books. And so in a few of the leadership books that I've read, they equate this to being on a bus and bringing people onto your bus and knowing exactly where to seat these people on the bus. And so the question I have is when you think of bringing someone onto your bus, into your organization, what are those things that you look for when you're trying to identify a coach or a staff member? What are you looking for to know that this is the person, this is the right kind of person to bring into our organization?
Well, another great question, and I love it because, like you, I'm a big fan of culture. I think culture, a positive culture, is a competitive advantage, and so I'm always looking for enlightened people that are going to add value to the organization. And I really do it in looking through three windows. The first is competence, and let's just say it's for a coaching position. I need a coach that knows X's and O's, knows how to recruit, knows how to schedule, knows how to develop a competitive practice plan every day, knows how to break down film, knows how to talk to his or her team, and knows what to do on game day, right? That core competency is really important. And you can tell pretty quickly whether a coach is in full command of his or her craft. It just oozes out of the coach. And it's really the same thing in a staff situation. If you're interviewing for a business position, you're going to know pretty quickly whether they've been in a business type of setting before, financial oversight, financial management, budget creation, things of that nature. You can tell. The second window is connectedness. So again, using the coaching position as a reference point, I'm looking for a coach that has great connections throughout the profession, that helps with scheduling, that helps with being able to get insight when going through a tough situation on his or her team, that can connect with campus partners, that can connect with other coaches within the department, that can connect with administrators, and most importantly, can connect with recruits and parents and certainly his or her student athletes on his or her respective team. Like, it's really important to me that there's this relational element that a coach possesses. And then the third thing is competitiveness. Like, if we're going to go outside to my basketball court and play horse tonight, I'm going to try to beat you. And I expect that you're going to try to beat me too. And, that you shouldn't be happy at the end of the match if I win, right? And I'm not going to be happy if you win. So, and I'm being a little silly on that part, but you can tell if somebody's competitive or not. And often it stands out on the resume. But even when giving an unproven coach the opportunity as an assistant, that whether they're competitive, and other people will talk about that person in that manner. So those three C's, the competence, the connectedness, and the competitiveness is really the way I look at people when I hire them. And I've been doing that for a long time, and it's worked pretty successfully.
Great. So when Pat and the team came to me about this podcast, one of the things that, first of all, like I said earlier, what is a podcast? But, I'm like, man, what do I talk about? I think, I've heard podcasts and those guys, they just talk. What do I talk about? And they said, man, the thing that you're best at is leadership. The thing that you love is leadership, is culture. From that moment on, it was on for me.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I continue to reflect on the people we've had, the guests that we've had, and like incredible leaders. But all of those leaders they had somebody or they had people behind them who pushed them to be the leaders that they are. And I can hear it, just like you said, right? I can hear it, right? I can hear it in your voice, and I can hear it in your responses, the type leader that you are. But my question to you is, who are the best leaders that you've been around? And what are the things that over the course of your life, because sometimes those leaders are parents, but over the course of your life, over the course of your career, who are 2 or 3 leaders who have impacted you? And what are the lessons and what are the things that they gave you that you still use to this day?
Yeah, you referenced 100 core values. I've been blessed to have had a lot of people to influence me and my leadership style and my philosophy and just who I am. And without question, it starts with my parents. But I think I'd like to highlight a couple individuals, and one of whom is a mentor that I never really worked with, but I admired growing up, and that was the former chancellor, president of the University of Mississippi in Robert Kayat, a former NFL player, former dean of the law school, former athletics administrator, and became the president, and was just a charismatic, caring human being that always put students first, regardless of whether uh, that was a student that didn't play sports or if it was a student athlete. And there's just countless stories about him and how he served the greater Oxford community where Ole Miss is, certainly the university itself. And I would read anything I could just to learn more about him. And certainly have had the privilege of meeting him multiple times, throughout my career, and always admired the way he carried himself, the way he treated other people. And I wanted to be similar to that. As best that I could emulate him, I wanted to do that. Another individual that had a huge impact on my life is my college baseball coach, Jim Page, who continues to be at the helm of the Millsaps College baseball program. He's won well over 800 games, over 300, I'm calling him old, over 35 years coaching baseball. He'll kill me for saying that he was 300 years old. He's not that old, but he was a figure that, quite frankly, I was scared of when I first started my college career, and that's probably a little bit too strong, but he was intimidating. And the more I got to know him and the more I trusted him and how he was coaching me and coaching my teammates and making us not only better athletes, but better people, I began to really cherish the relationship that I had with him while I was there. And of course, got to coach alongside him while I was in MBA school. And then we continue to be great friends today. And he, his strongest leadership lesson to us was you always have to be ready to make an adjustment. So there were countless times every day at practice. I mean, there were times where we felt like we would never get it right because he was constantly, and it really wasn't an instruction so much as it was an invitation to make an adjustment. And, eventually we figured it out. And so I find myself even today, as I run meetings or as I'm dealing with coaches on a situation or student athletes or fellow administrators across campus or dealing with members of the public, whatever the issue may be, I always find myself listening to Coach Page saying, "Hey, Mitchell, make an adjustment." Right.
Right.
And I just admire the steady success that he has had over 35 plus years of running a very successful baseball program, and the type of human being that he is, the type of dad that he is, the type of father that he is. And he's a great role model, and he's been a great role model for hundreds of young men who now go on and live their lives and are impacting now generations of individuals. So and Coach, you do the same thing, and you know what I'm talking about when I reference the impact that coaches have on the lives of young women and men. So I highlight those two gentlemen because I've learned a lot from them, and hope that I'm carrying in my leadership and in my life uh, certainly lessons that I've learned from them, but also trying to emulate them as the men that they are.
Yeah, and that's amazing because Coach Page, even though he's not 300 years old, he will continue to live through former players like
That's
yourself.
right.
I like to tell this story really quickly, right? Because
Sure.
it's going to definitely lead right into my next question. In this profession, especially as a coach, they always say, you either fired or you're going to be fired. You've been fired. That's just the way it works, right? You have to understand that this is a volatile career, and it's about performance. And so as a coach, you have to understand that man, sometimes it's even out of your control, but you can go through a transition point, right? So this story takes me to that place in my life, in my career, where I am in transition. But in those moments, I like to be very blunt. I like to be as transparent as I can. And I like, I use a term around my house, you got to pin your ears back, right? And so to use those terms, you got to find a new job. So you got to pin your ears back. You can't talk about being in transition and going through a little, no, man, I'm fired at this moment, right? So I got to get moving. Well, I'm going to pause my story and I'm going to go back a few months before I was fired. I got an email from a wife, I guess for her husband. And this email said, Coach, we've been watching you, we watch your career, and we know that you really concern yourself with helping younger coaches, with advising younger coaches, people who are new to the profession. And we just need your advice right here. We are fired at this moment. And honestly, we're in a place where we don't know if we should continue in this profession. We don't know if we should continue on. And all we want is we just want some advice from you. And as a coach, you get hundreds of recruit emails, you get all kinds of coach emails, but I really try to respond to people's emails, right? No matter who it might be. And I have a ton of stories for instances that I responded to an email that somebody else might have deleted. Either way, let's go back to my moment in time when I'm fired. I'm speaking at the AFCA convention, and I'm actually, like I said, I'm fired, but I'm on the stage and I'm talking about faith, family, and football. Well, someone brings up the question that we're going to pose to the panel on the stage about transition. Well, wait a minute. Nope, we're not talking about transition. We're talking about being fired. Because that's what I am at this moment, in case anybody out in the audience wants to know, right? Because you can't be embarrassed. It happens to everybody. Anyway, I go through and I do this panel. Well, after I'm done, people want to talk to you. My wife comes up, who's not even, like, this is the coaches convention. She's a part of the wives functions and she's over with the AFCWA, but she's at this speech. My wife grabs me and drags me over to somebody. I don't even know who she's dragging me to, but those people, they have to wait. She drags me to the lady who months before had written me. Well, let me tell you what I said in that email. I said in that email months earlier, I said, listen, being fired, it happens. You can't be embarrassed. You have to attack the moment head on. You have to understand that it's a part of the business and it's actually in your growth, it's a part of the process. So what you need to understand is that you're not a bad coach. It's a situation that you didn't perform well maybe at this moment, and you have to keep moving forward, just like in a game, right? When the offense doesn't get the first down, they don't just go back into the locker room. They punt and they keep it moving. Defense, when they score on you, okay, yeah, we're all upset that they scored, but the game is not over. We have other plays that we have to play, so we have to pick up the pieces. We have to learn from our mistakes, and we have to keep it moving. That's what I said to them in that email. Same thing that I said on that stage. It was so powerful to me to talk to these people who I didn't know they would be in that audience. But the same email that I sent to them when I was high and mighty, when I was not fired, but the same words that I used to them, they were the same words that I was living on that stage as a fired coach. So that takes me to my question to you, is that you, in your role, you have an opportunity. Being on this podcast tonight is an example of that. But you have an opportunity to motivate, to help younger people who want to walk down the road that you walk. How do you motivate the younger people on your staff? And what would you tell a person who wants to do what you do today?
Yeah. So, Coach, first of all, thank you for telling that story because it is powerful, and it is a testament to your core values and the way you coach, the way you lead your life, and the fact that, you know, the blessing that you gave that couple in that time was returned to you. That's really special. So thank you for sharing that. So I take the responsibility of mentorship pretty seriously. And, again, you've heard from me and a couple of the individuals whom I admire and the impact they had on my life. And there's many other ones. And they gave me a shot, right? My first AD at Millsaps College gave me a chance. The first AD who hired me at Santa Clara gave me a chance. And I'm forever grateful to them. And I want to be the same way to others. And so, I started an internship program when I was at Santa Clara for Santa Clara law students so they could get involved and get what I promised. The only thing I ever promised them was I'm going to give you substantive work to do that if you're interested in pursuing a career in athletics administration, whether it be compliance or something else, you'll at least be able to demonstrate that you have quality work product that can serve as living proof of your resume. It's not just you were working in a department. You've actually got product that you can produce. And I responded like you with emails. I respond to every student that reaches out to me that wants an informational interview or wants to meet or just has questions in the email. For 20 plus years, I have responded to each one because I see myself as an educator first. And so that's impacting a student.
Yes.
If I don't respond, that's negatively impacting a student because I have something to give them. But by responding and by inviting the conversation, I can perhaps enrich their life. And maybe it takes hold, maybe it doesn't, but I'm not going to be the one that doesn't give. So my philosophy really is to pour into them. Specifically on our staff, though, and even coaches, I've got so many friends in the profession now across multiple sports that came up with me as an assistant associate AD. They were assistant coaches and just encouraging them, helping them, and now they've gone on to be successful head coaches in their own right. And here I am as an FBS AD, and so we love to encourage each other. But I want to give our staff that substantive work, the same thing that I was doing with those students, I do with our staff, because my job is to help prepare them for their own opportunities one day to run a department. The way that I do it is in a style where it's okay for them to express interest in other positions, or it's okay for them to ask questions about, hey, what if I could get some experience in this other area? Well, that's my job, is to help prepare them, right? So if they're going to go and do great things and it leads them to getting another opportunity somewhere else, that's a celebration. That's a victory. And we'll find somebody else. But so I've had 2 deputy ADs since I've been at Ball State that have gone on to get opportunities at other places that paying them more, different responsibilities, and they're on this career trajectory that's upward. I'm proud of them.
Right.
Does it put me in a bind from a leadership standpoint? Well, sure, but I love that. That's not an issue. I just channel Coach Page. He says make an adjustment, right? And so that's what I do.
That's right.
But I want to put people in positions where they can thrive and put people in positions where they can grow and develop. It looks different relative to the person, and I try to tailor opportunities specific to the individual's strengths and try to focus on that while also working on elements of their career where they may need some work. I just love them and support them and try to put them on that right seat on the bus where it helps the bus go at, in such a way that's impactful to everybody that's on it.
And I think that's so important for the leader, right? Because what you said earlier, of course, and I had a discussion with one of our student volunteers. He was really nervous because he was interested in an opportunity to learn more. And I said, man, that's the purpose. The purpose is you're here so that we can develop you to find out whatever it might be. You may not want to be. Guess what? If you find that you don't want to be a coach, we don't want you to coach because you'll be a bad coach, right? So
that's right.
This opportunity, we want you to explore things. Of course, like you said, the leader has to replace you. But guess what? That's like that's a celebration because I send you off and I get to help someone else to grow to the place that you grew to, right? And so for me, having an opportunity here at Kansas State, I get an opportunity to lead the searches for some of our staff members. And so that's been a cool experience for me. And we've hired 3 special teams coaches. They keep leaving, getting jobs in the NFL, right? Well, guess what? They put a great product on the field here and they get opportunities. So that says something about the job that we're doing in hiring really good people.
That's right.
So I have 2 more questions, and they are both, I would say amongst my favorite questions as we've done this. The first question is that, as a former student athlete, I didn't always get it right. And I know there are some people who watch me today and say, who is that? Who is that person who never listened and now he's asking people to listen? And as a coach, day after day, I get an opportunity to, like we talked about, pour into young men. And just like I was, some take a little bit more pouring than others, right? Some take a little bit more time than others. But one day they get it, right? And I know what happens for me on Saturdays, but honestly, I consider those moments my game day, because game day, everybody's there, it's TV and the lights. But man, we are here to grow people, to take them to another place in their lives. And so when I see a young man who missed classes as a freshman, who was not doing the right things as a teammate, as a sophomore, and then he gets to that junior year and you just see him, he has a different walk about him. He just looks different. Again, for me, like I'm as competitive as they come. But that's game day for me, right? That's a component of game day. So I would ask you, because for an AD, there's no blood, sweat, and tears for you. But I would ask you, what is your game day? What is that thing that makes you know you're doing it the right way? You're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, it's really an outstanding question. I think it comes in various forms, Coach. It often, as you've articulated so eloquently, it revolves around the promotion of people and seeing others be successful. I get the joy of watching it through the lens of a coach and student athlete relationship, and through the student athlete success lens as well. So watching a team that or a particular set of student athletes or one student athlete who comes in and they go through those early challenges, and then all of a sudden everything starts to click and the success starts to happen as an individual, the success starts to happen as a team. For coaches to hire a coach and to have them be successful and to see it come together the way that they articulated that it might, in the interview process, or how we as an organization put an organizational chart together that best serves the interests of our student athletes and our coaches and the staff, and how we whether it's winning a ball game or closing a major gift or building a building, those are game days for me, when it's all the effort and the work and the strategy that goes into accomplishing a goal. And yeah, it sometimes it has nothing to do with wins, with a big win. That's just a result. But it has everything to do with, hey, all those meetings, right? There's a lot of meetings, all those meetings that we sat through, and we did this, that, and the other, and now look at us, right? We got it done, and but even then, you're celebrating the success of human beings along the way, right? And those are, it's kind of like celebrating a first down in football, right? It's progress, and you have to be excited about it. But that next play's coming, and we always have that next play mentality. That was another Coach Page deal. It was like, look, if you boot a ground ball at second base, Jeff, just find a piece of a rock in the infield dirt, throw it in right field, and move on, because you can't do anything about it, right? Next play, and that's just something that I try to instill with our people. Is like, we're going to keep going, keep showing up, keep going, and keep improving. And when we win, we're going to win together, and we come up short, we're going to come up short together, and we're going to just keep going. But I love working with people, and I really enjoy the emotions that come along with it, because it's real life, and it's fun. It's almost like it's every day's game day in many respects.
So you being a baseball guy, again, I read a lot of leadership books, and one of the things that some of these books say is, as a leader, you have to admit your vulnerabilities. You have to be willing to put yourself out there, right? So I'm going to do just that for a big time baseball guy. So the other day we're in the locker room, and that we're in the Major League Baseball playoffs, right? And so we're in the locker room, and I'm not really a baseball person, right? So we're in the locker room, and a couple of coaches, they're talking about the Mets, and they're talking about the Royals, and they're talking about these teams. And I said, oh man, baseball, what is it, opening day or something? So, right, I have not been able to live that down, right? I mean, all these guys are saying, hey man, opening day, what kind of question is that? What kind of comment is that? Have you ever heard of Mr. October? I said, yeah, man, but I mean, what does that mean, right? And so I do know now, after much education, I do understand that we're in the playoffs. So, right, I don't understand a lot of other things about baseball, but I do know that October is the heat of the season, right? Things are getting busy in October. I've learned that.
That's right.
So my final question is about that young Jeff Mitchell, right? Young Jeff. So you today, you can go back and talk to that young dude because he might have done some things that you'd never do today, right? But if you could talk to him about life, about advancing in your career, about just being a better leader, being a better guy, probably making life a lot easier for yourself, what would you tell that young dude?
Yeah. I love this question too. I'd tell him this. I'd tell him that you can't accelerate experience. So, going back to my time at Millsaps as a sports information director and an MBA student, a baseball coach, and I often was thinking about what was next, and I realize that may sound contradictory to one of my core values when I talk about a growth mindset, but it's what I was doing was I wasn't possessing the growth mindset, even though I was asking the question, what's next? Because I wasn't absorbing what I needed to be learning because I was so focused on the what's next, as opposed to absorbing the moment, which was going to inform me of what was next. And I learned it over time that the best gift that I was being given was the opportunity to really soak up the current situation that I was in and to learn every lesson that I could about that particular moment or those particular moments, and that the cumulative effect of those moments was preparing me for the eventual what's next, right? And so that's what I tell our young staff too. I said, I know it's hard, but you cannot accelerate experience. Let it happen. Be present, show up every day, and that whatever's next is going to come. You have to enjoy and put in the time in the now. And I live a no regrets type of life. I mean, I don't reflect and think, oh, I wish I would have done that, because I think all those lessons have aided me to where I am today. But yeah, I mean, I wish there were times where I would have just enjoyed that particular moment a little bit more than I did. And certainly am offering that advice to those who are listening to the podcast. And certainly the people with whom I work are getting that advice from me on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think, coaches, we make ourselves victims of that all the time. We win championships and we participate, we coach in bowl games. And I was talking to one of our coaches about the fact that since we've been at Kansas State, we've had an opportunity to win bowls, right? To go to bowl games. And so you get the bowl rings. And we were talking about the fact that we get these bowl rings, we never wear them. You get the bowl ring, you work hard for it. You may have a lot of them, but you never smell these roses, right? Because as soon as the bowl game is over, bam, you're recruiting. You're on recruiting. And then when the recruiting, that moment, because recruiting is always, but that moment when you have a break for recruiting, well, once that thing's over, you're in the spring practice and you are working for the next bowl game, for the next championship. And so you never get really an opportunity to at least smell those roses. Like you said, all those meetings, all that work, accomplish something. No, you might not have won a national championship, but you accomplished something. You did something. You got your team, your program, you moved it forward, and you have to take the moment to just enjoy. We play a game. We play a game each week. You win the game. Bam, the next morning you're into the next,
right.
And I think it's so important that you do that while while it's happening, while you're going through the process. And we as coaches, we say, when I retire, then oh man, when you retire, you're tired. You know what I mean? You don't get an opportunity. It's most pleasant. It's most fun when you enjoy it with the people who went through the struggles with you. Right.
That's right.
And so go ahead.
To that point, I want to offer, something that underscores what we've been talking about. So at every one of our leadership team meetings and at every one of our all staff meetings or our head coach meetings, we do not end the meeting until we share at least 3 what we call victory shares. And it doesn't have to be anything about an athletics competition outcome. It can be, but it's really not encouraged. The encouragement is what else is going on. Did you land a big recruit? Did your daughter or son have a big game, in their sport? Did you buy a new house or whatever the case may be? And we share that culture of success by telling stories about good things that happen to each other. And the more we do it, it has a cumulative effect too. I've been doing that for a while now with meetings that I run, and certainly introduced it here at Ball State. And it's the favorite part of my meeting. And we do it at the end because we're going to leave the meeting, even if the meeting was boring or if the meeting was contentious, we're at least going to leave with 3 victory shares, and it puts everybody in a good mood when they walk out the door. I think we need to celebrate our victories a little bit more. And if anything, it's it's medicine for the soul, and we're going to continue to crave it, right? So we're going to continue to work hard so that we can continue to celebrate. But if we forget to do those things, we slip into just a different mindset, and it's winning and success is a habit, so we have to reinforce it.
Right. Well, I think that's something that, as a leader, that's something that's really cool that you do, because for me, I believe that, staff members, in an athletic department, the culture, same as a football team, right? Every day is not going to be a banquet, every day is not,
That's right.
It's not Christmas, not giving out gifts every day. There are going to be some days of hard discussion. There are going to be some days where we may have disagreements, but at the end of the day, I think doing things like that is good for like you said, is good for the soul, is good for the culture, because you want people to walk in the doors, not just at a staff meeting, but you want them to walk in the doors with an understanding that, man, we're all in this together, right? And as the leader that I care about, one of the books that I've talked about is that I care about what is going on with you. People always say they don't care what you know, they just want to know that you care. And how true that is for coaches, for leaders. They're not listening to you if you're not connected to them. And you're connected to them when you know their kids' names, right? You're connected. And maybe you don't know them, but you care to know, right? And people, they know when you care to know or not, right? And I think that's big. And kudos to you and your staff for continuing to do things like that. Well, Jeff, man, I appreciate your time. Pat and I, we always talk. Once these are over, like, man, that was a good one. And fortunately for us, we've never had, oh, that one was pretty bad. It's always been, that's a good one. And I'll say to you that, this was a good one. So I appreciate you for sharing. I appreciate you for hopping on and giving your time, because it's just, like I said earlier, it's been cool when people come up to me, people that I would never think who would be watching or listening to this podcast, they come up to me and say, I haven't missed one. And they say, I've learned so much from this. And so, you know, I got a lot to do, and so do you. But when we can pour into people that we don't even know, we volunteer for it every time. So thank you.
That's right. No, it's my pleasure, and I wish you and Kansas State football program all the best the rest of the year.